At 65 years old, Simon Cowell is facing a phase few could have imagined, a moment filled with mystery, contradictions, and revelations that have shaken fans and critics around the world. For decades, he was seen as the relentless judge, the calculating mind behind global phenomena, but behind the cameras, there were always rumors of burnout, internal conflicts with major networks, controversial decisions involving contestants, and even allegations of manipulation that deeply marked his public image. Now a new, untold truth emerges, bringing to light hidden stories, unexpected changes in his personal life, episodes he tried to keep silent, and a twist that left the media in shock. In this video, we will explore these behind-the-scenes moments that few dared to comment on, revealing the most controversial episodes, the tensions that grew away from the spotlight, and the silent tragedy that many never noticed but that has now become impossible to ignore. Before we begin, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. This is essential because YouTube only recommends videos from creators who receive audience interaction, and your subscription helps this content reach more people who also want to understand the full truth behind these stories. If you can support even more with a super thanks, it helps the channel continue producing detailed and well-researched videos, but if you can't, just comment on which part of this story surprised you the most. That already helps a lot. And stay with me until the end because the final revelation is so unexpected and disturbing that it promises to leave you completely shocked. Simon Cowell's childhood, though often overshadowed by the glamour and controversies of his adult career, is a crucial chapter in understanding how he became one of the most influential and controversial figures on TV. Simon was born on October 7, 1959, into a British family that combined strict traditions with a creatively rich environment. His father, Eric Cowell, worked in the music industry and had important connections with record labels and executives, while his mother, Julie, was a former ballerina and socialite who always valued discipline, poise, and presence. Growing up between these two very different influences shaped Simon's keen sense for reading people, environments, and intentions from an early age. He was not considered an easy child. In fact, from a young age, he displayed a strong, questioning, and often challenging personality. Teachers reported that he rarely accepted rules simply because they were rules. Simon wanted to understand the reasons. He wanted to know why he should follow certain norms, something that often led to clashes with authority figures. He got bored with repetitive tasks, hated formalities, and didn't hide when he found something dull or pointless, a trait that would later make him so famous as a direct and relentless judge. This striking temperament caused him to change schools more than once. Although his family knew Simon had potential, they didn't always know how to channel his energy and intellect. It was not uncommon for him to be considered difficult, and at times, he was labeled as someone who didn't fit the traditional school model. In interviews, Simon recalls this period with a mix of humor and honesty, admitting that he disliked classes and saw little point in following paths that didn't capture his interest. At the same time, it was during this phase that he began to notice his fascination with the entertainment world. The Cowell household frequently hosted musicians, producers, and industry professionals, which sparked something within him. He would watch, listen to stories, and pay attention to how people reacted to praise, criticism, and opportunities. Without realizing it, Simon was developing a skill that would later become his trademark, the almost instinctive ability to identify talent, assess demeanor, and predict what would or wouldn't work in front of an audience. Despite his natural curiosity, Simon also faced insecurities and emotional challenges typical of adolescence. He didn't fit into the school's most popular circles, wasn't considered an exemplary student, and often felt out of place. However, these moments of discomfort ultimately shaped his determination. He realized early on that he didn't want to follow the traditional path of university, a stable career, and a predictable routine. He wanted to find his own space, something that would allow him to use his strong personality creatively. His relationship with his father played a key role in this process. Eric Cowell, while trying to encourage responsibility and seriousness, also recognized that his son had a special eye for music and business. It was thanks to him that Simon gained his first professional contact with the entertainment world at a young age, working as a mailroom assistant at a record label. This simple job, theoretically just a modest beginning, ended up becoming a real hands-on school. He observed executives negotiating, saw anxious artists coming and going, and noticed how small decisions could completely change the trajectory of a career. Yet before reaching this point, Simon still had to face criticism, frustrations, and the constant feeling of being different. The childhood and adolescence of the future TV mogul were marked by a search for identity, internal and external challenges, and the need to prove that his unusual way of seeing the world could take him far. This early period, full of small conflicts and major discoveries, shaped the man who would later become known for his brutal honesty, sharp vision, and unique ability to turn dreams, and sometimes nightmares, into spectacles that would captivate millions in front of a screen. Simon Cowell's early career was a true roller coaster, marked by bold attempts, painful failures, and an almost stubborn persistence that ultimately shaped the brilliant and controversial professional he would become years later. After a childhood full of questions and conflicts with school, Simon made one of his first major life decisions, not to follow the traditional path that many expected of him. His first step came thanks to the influence of his father, Eric Cowell, who helped him secure a simple job at a British record label, EMI. Simon literally started from the bottom, delivering mail, sorting tapes, organizing documents, and doing tasks that seemed far removed from any glamour. But it was there, in the hallways, crowded offices, and busy studios, that he began to understand the dynamics of the industry, watching carefully how artists were signed, how producers evaluated material, and how quick decisions could define a talent's future. Even so, his frank and impatient personality soon caused friction. He didn't hide when he disagreed with superiors, which led to him being fired more than once. Yet these stumbles did not destroy his motivation. In fact, each dismissal seemed to reinforce the idea that he needed to create his own opportunities. Determined to prove his worth, Simon decided to found his first company, Fanfare Records, alongside a partner. At first, everything seemed promising. He managed to sign a few artists, invested in pop sounds that were trending, and most notably worked with Sinita, whose song, So Macho, became a major hit in the 1980s. This success made him believe he had finally found his path. However, the success lasted far less than he had imagined. The music market changed rapidly, the company could not keep pace, and within a few years, Fanfare collapsed. Simon lost almost everything, and, in one of the most uncomfortable moments of his life, had to move back in with his parents, something he has admitted in interviews was humiliating, but also highly formative. This period was marked by frustration, but also reflection. Simon realized that despite his vision for musical talent, he lacked financial stability and long-term strategy. Instead of giving up, he reorganized his mindset and decided to return to the industry, this time working for other companies before trying his own venture again. During these years, he worked as a talent scout, producer, and consultant, betting on unknown artists and trying to create hits. Many attempts failed, several ideas were rejected, and countless projects never reached the public. Simon went through moments of deep uncertainty, when it seemed that nothing would truly take off. Yet he refused to leave the industry. During this period, he began developing a crucial skill for the future, identifying not only good artists, but also good entertainment formats. He already understood that audiences wanted more than music. They wanted stories, emotions, competitions, authenticity. This awareness, combined with his willingness to take risks, opened the door to the next stage of his career. After years of frustrations and constant restarts, Simon found that talent competitions offered the perfect space to apply everything he had learned. He began working with program formats that involved judges, live audiences, and real contestants. It was the ideal setting for his frankness, quick intelligence, and attention-grabbing abilities. Even before reality show stardom, he was already noticed for his confident demeanor and direct way of defending his choices. In retrospect, every fall, every dismissal, every bankruptcy, every rejected project was a fundamental part of building the Simon Cowell the world would later know. He learned that failures were not signs of incapacity, but turning points that pushed him to create something greater. The sum of these frustrated attempts shaped the unique combination of boldness, discipline, and courage that would make him, in the future, one of the most powerful names in global television. After years of facing setbacks, failed attempts, and restarts that seemed to lead nowhere, Simon Cowell finally found the perfect territory for his talent, the world of competition shows. What began as modest backstage involvement quickly turned into a revolution that would forever change the format of television, the way audiences consume music, and even how new artists reach stardom. But none of this happened by chance. Building the Simon Cowell name in television was a long, strategic process full of unexpected moments. The turning point came when Simon, already more experienced in the music industry, participated in the early versions of Pop Idol in the UK in the early 2000s. At that time, the country was already saturated with traditional competitions, and audiences were looking for something new, more authentic and engaging. Simon realized that the secret was not only in discovering talent, but in building stories, creating tension, generating real emotions, and above all, showing the public what many executives were afraid to reveal, the raw truth of auditions. He initially joined the show behind the scenes, but was soon invited to take on the role of judge, and that's when everything changed. His brutal honesty, impassive expression, and direct comments immediately drew attention. On a television landscape accustomed to gentle critiques and diplomatic praise, Simon said exactly what he thought, whether good or bad. And the audience loved it, even those who claimed to dislike him kept watching. He became the most talked-about figure on the show. The success of Pop Idol paved the way for an even bigger American version, American Idol. It was at this point that Simon Cowell stopped being just a talented executive and became an international phenomenon. The United States, with its enormous market and celebrity culture, amplified his image to massive proportions. He approached the show with the same attitude he had in the UK, with no interest in adapting his style to please the American audience. If a performance was bad, Simon said so. If someone lacked presence, he pointed it out. If a performance was good, he praised it. But what attracted viewers the most was his ability to summarize in a few words what millions of people were thinking at home but didn't dare to say. This authenticity, seen by some as arrogance and by others as genius, made Simon one of the program's pillars. In addition, he had another equally powerful talent, his ability to predict what would work commercially. He was not just a judge. He was a producer with business insight. He could identify not only who sang well, but who had a story, charisma, and uniqueness. This skill helped many American Idol winners and finalists go on to highly successful careers. Simon transformed contestants into media products, creating a direct bridge between television, the music industry, and cultural impact. While many judges evaluated that day's performance, Simon assessed long-term potential, and almost always with impressive accuracy. With the explosion of American Idol, he wasn't content to be just part of a successful show. He wanted to create his own formats, control more aspects of production, and expand his influence. That's when the X Factor was born, initially in the UK. The major difference in this show was its more elaborate structure. Distinct categories, mentors, strategic stages, and of course, bigger opportunities for the audience to become emotionally involved. Cowell understood that people didn't just want to watch auditions. They wanted to follow journeys, root for contestants, revolt, and celebrate victories and injustices. The X Factor became a cultural phenomenon, launching artists like One Direction, Little Mix, and Leona Lewis, names that define generations. This massive success established Simon as one of the greatest creative minds in modern television. He didn't just participate in the shows, he directed them, shaping every stage from backstage to the final performance. And despite frequent criticism for his rigid behavior, he was seen as someone who truly understood the emotion the audience craved. The creation of Britain's Got Talent and later America's Got Talent further elevated his brand. Unlike his music shows, these formats welcomed any kind of talent: magic, comedy, dance, acrobatics, contortion, trained dogs, everything. Simon realized that people wanted to see the unexpected. Audiences love to be surprised, to laugh, to be moved, to be shocked. And that is exactly what Got Talent delivered. The show became one of the most watched in the world, with versions in dozens of countries. Its global reach, combined with Simon's leadership, made him an internationally recognized figure, even among those who didn't follow music competitions. Another essential factor in building the Simon Cowell icon was his ability to turn controversy into fuel. His direct style often generated criticism, headlines, and social media debates, but instead of retreating, Simon used this to strengthen his image. He knew that being liked is good, but being impossible to ignore is even better for television. And so he built a powerful personal brand: dark suit, serious expression, arms crossed, sharp comments, and above all, a piercing gaze that seemed to look straight through contestants. He became a symbol of authenticity, even when harshly criticized. Behind the scenes, Simon also revolutionized production. He introduced new dynamics, invested in diverse talent, influenced radio playlists, facilitated million-dollar record deals, and discovered artists who reshaped global pop culture. His vision expanded far beyond the shows themselves. He understood how to turn television into business and business into phenomenon. Over the years, his image evolved. Although he never completely abandoned his critical style, Simon became lighter, more humorous, and even more empathetic toward many contestants. Some fans attribute this change to maturity, while others point to fatherhood as a turning point. In any case, the evolution of his demeanor only reinforced his ongoing relevance. Cowell's personal life has always been fertile ground for curiosity, speculation, and headlines that spread around the world. Behind the dominant, confident public figure who appeared on Idol, The X Factor, and Got Talent, there's a man with an emotional journey full of highs and lows, intense relationships, controversial decisions, and particularly delicate moments that shaped not only his public image, but also his views on success, family, and responsibility. Understanding his personal life is essential to grasp his complexity, because Simon has never been just the tough judge. He has always been someone torn between ambition, vulnerabilities, and profound changes over the years. For much of his youth and early adulthood, Simon gained fame as a reserved yet charming and enigmatic man. He frequently engaged in relationships that drew attention due to the differences in lifestyle between him and his partners. Many were models, rising celebrities, or women connected to the world of fashion and television. The media followed his every move, portraying him as someone who avoided formal commitments, preferred freer relationships, and maintained a stylish, yet emotionally distant lifestyle. He himself admitted in interviews that for many years he was not ready for serious commitment and was more focused on work than on love life. This fueled headlines and speculation about his view of love, often depicting him as someone afraid of deep feelings or constantly avoiding romantic responsibilities. However, the most talked about aspect of his personal life involves his relationship with Lauren Silverman, which became one of the most sensitive and controversial points in his history. The beginning of the relationship attracted intense media coverage, generating controversies that Simon later described as one of the most difficult periods of his private life. The situation drew international attention because it involved complex decisions, emotional impact on many people, and repercussions that placed Simon under unprecedented personal pressure. He revealed in interviews that he experienced moments of deep reflection, faced heavy criticism, and had to deal with significant emotional consequences. Although it was a turbulent period, it was also a turning point. Over time, Simon and Lauren built a solid relationship, marked by stability, closeness, and a clear shift in his personal behavior. The arrival of the couple's son, Eric, represented a transformative milestone. Simon has consistently stated that becoming a father changed him in ways he never imagined. For years, he lived as an extremely focused professional with exhausting schedules, constant pressure, and a life centered on work. With fatherhood, however, he began prioritizing home life, avoiding unnecessary travel, and slowing down, expressing his desire to be present to watch his son grow. He has stated that Eric brought emotional balance, softened the stricter traits of his personality, and taught him to see the world with more calm and sensitivity. Many fans noticed that Simon became lighter, more cheerful, and sometimes even kinder in his program evaluations after this period. In addition to romantic relationships, Simon has always maintained important family ties. His mother, Julie, was a central figure in his life, someone who advised, supported, and greatly influenced his decisions. Her passing in 2015 was one of the most painful moments he faced. He spoke about this in interviews, mentioning how fragile he felt and how grieving affected him emotionally. The absence of his mother also coincided with a period of profound changes, both personal and professional, further prompting him to seek a calmer life with less emotional strain. Simon's personal life has also been marked by another area of controversy, his outspoken remarks in interviews. Cowell has always been known for saying exactly what he thinks without filters, and this extended beyond the reality show stage. He has admitted regret over certain professional decisions, criticized celebrity behavior, commented publicly on aesthetic pressures, the music industry, and even on manipulations that occurred behind the scenes of some television formats. At times, his statements sparked intense debates, reinforcing the idea that he was someone unafraid of strong opinions, even at personal or professional risk. On other occasions, he surprised audiences by showing vulnerability, confessing insecurities, moments of exhaustion, and difficulties balancing personal life and career. Another aspect of his personal life that drew attention in recent years was accidents and health impacts. Simon suffered serious falls involving electric bikes, resulting in surgeries and long recovery periods. These episodes prompted him to reconsider his life. He revealed that he experienced intense fears and deep introspection, realizing how much he had been risking his well-being to maintain the fast pace he had always kept. The accidents served as a wake-up call. He changed habits, adopted healthier routines, and sought emotional balance, prioritizing family and well-being. Simon Cowell, widely recognized for his frank and direct personality, has seen these traits define not only his unique style as a judge, but also generate controversies that marked every stage of his professional and personal life. From his early days as a music producer to becoming the global face of major television formats, Cowell had to navigate backstage full of tension, internal disputes, and challenges rarely visible to the public. His controversial statements, often shared in interviews and public appearances, reflect a combination of brutal honesty, market awareness, and in many cases, moments of personal frustration that surfaced during times of vulnerability. It is within this balance of genius, stubbornness, and vulnerability that the essence of the controversies surrounding him lies. One of the first significant examples of his frankness occurred behind the scenes of Pop Idol and American Idol. Simon quickly stood out not only for judging performances, but also for questioning how the entertainment industry was conducted. He openly criticized the music industry and producers, stating in interviews that many artists were promoted superficially, with little attention to the quality or authenticity of their work. These comments were not well received by everyone. Record executives and even colleagues often reacted with irritation or caution, but Cowell always maintained his stance, explaining that his intention was to protect the audience and value genuine talent. In some interviews, he admitted that these statements created moments of internal tension, as some peers considered his opinions excessively harsh or even humiliating for contestants. Furthermore, Cowell never shied away from controversial topics related to the shows he directed. He revealed that in the early years of The X Factor, many decisions were not as simple as they appeared on television. Choosing which contestants would advance involved heated discussions with producers and other judges. He mentioned in interviews that some backstage situations were emotionally exhausting, with intense disputes over who deserved the spotlight or who should be eliminated. Simon explained that, although the audience only saw a quick elimination scene, it reflected weeks of strategic decisions, internal conflicts, and pressure to keep the show engaging without losing credibility. On many occasions, he had to balance the expectations of the public, the network, and sponsors, often placing him at the center of criticism, both internal and external. Cowell also addressed controversial issues regarding the exposure and well-being of contestants. He admitted that during the early years of reality shows, not all participants were emotionally prepared for the pressure of appearing on national television. Some became targets of public criticism, social media attacks, and sharp comments from Simon himself, who now acknowledges that he could have been more sensitive in certain situations. In more recent interviews, he stated that, although his approach was effective in keeping audience attention and generating viewership, he learned to balance frankness with empathy, especially after realizing that young talents were emotionally affected by harsh criticism. Another controversial point concerns financial negotiations and decisions behind the scenes. Cowell has openly stated that not all choices made on programs like Britain's Got Talent or The X Factor were based solely on talent. Some involve marketing strategies, record label contracts, and sponsor interests. He admitted that, at times, the tension was immense, as he had to make decisions that might seem unfair to the public, but were essential for the success of the show. These revelations sparked debates about ethics and transparency, but also highlighted the complexity of managing mass entertainment on a global level. Cowell also faced personally difficult moments related to his health. He shared in interviews that these episodes were significant not only for physical pain, but also for the emotional impact of realizing his body was no longer invincible. Simon reported that these experiences forced him to reflect on work pace, personal priorities, and the balance between professional and family life. He himself noted that for many years, he ignored signs of exhaustion, always putting work above everything, and only after these physical challenges did he begin to re-evaluate his schedule and approach to stress. Another source of controversy was public commentary on colleagues and artists. Cowell never avoided expressing critical opinions, even knowing they could spark repercussions. He criticized mediocre performances, behaviors of judges or hosts, and strategic decisions of media executives. On various occasions, these statements were portrayed by the media as controversial or personal attacks, although Simon explained that his intention was professional, always aiming to raise the production standard and highlight real talent. He also admitted that at times he went too far with his frankness and hurt people, but these mistakes were part of the learning process of running high-pressure shows. Cowell also revealed, in more open interviews, moments of emotional vulnerability rarely seen on television. He spoke about nights when he felt overwhelmed, facing constant criticism, audience expectations, and the responsibility of decisions affecting the lives of young artists. He described feelings of anxiety, doubt, and even fear of public failure, something that shocked fans used to seeing him confident and impassive. Simon emphasized that these difficult moments were essential for his growth, teaching him to value emotional balance, family support, and private reflection away from the cameras. Another important aspect of backstage tensions involved interactions with judges and mentors on the shows he directed. Cowell admitted that selecting colleagues was not always easy, as he had to balance different personalities, judging styles, and egos. Internal conflicts, heated debates, and even personal disagreements were frequent, but he always emphasized that these tensions contributed to creating a healthy competitive environment, and ultimately, the goal was to deliver quality entertainment to the audience. In several interviews, he noted that some judges complained about his direct approach, but also recognized that he had a clear vision of what worked on television, something not everyone was initially willing to accept. Additionally, Simon revealed external pressures that impacted his career. He faced constant criticism from artists' rights groups, competitors' parents, and fans who disagreed with his evaluations. In some cases, he received public attacks on social media, which he described as challenging moments for his emotional stability. He explained that learning to deal with public opinions, criticism, and unrealistic expectations was a long process that required self-awareness, confidence, and often resilience in the face of adversities that could shake any professional. Another significant point was the strategic backstage decisions related to show formats. Cowell admitted that many choices regarding scripts, performance orders, and editing were not as spontaneous as they appeared. He revealed that in some situations, these choices were made to maximize emotional impact, create suspense, and maintain audience engagement. Although these revelations sparked criticism about manipulation, Simon argued that all decisions aimed to create memorable experiences and protect the careers of genuinely talented artists. He also noted that not all participants understood these dynamics, which could generate frustration and tension. Throughout his career, Simon also dealt with episodes of personal strain, particularly due to the intensity of commitments. He mentioned in interviews that he spent months without vacation, constantly traveling between recordings in the UK, the US, and other countries, managing multi-million-dollar contracts, and overseeing projects at various stages. This intense pace had physical and emotional impacts, including insomnia, high stress, and difficulty maintaining healthy relationships outside work. He acknowledged that only with maturity did he begin adopting practices to balance health, family, and career. Simon Cowell also shared moments when he had to face severe criticism regarding his public image. The media often portrayed him as a television villain, arrogant, and insensitive. He stated that learning to deal with these perceptions, while maintaining authenticity without succumbing to external pressure, was one of the greatest challenges of his career. Cowell affirmed that over the years, he learned to separate constructive criticism from unfair attacks and to transform tension and controversy into motivation to continue innovating and delivering quality entertainment. Simon Cowell now lives a phase of his life marked by maturity, reflection, and a new relationship with fame, something that contrasts strongly with the intense and demanding image the public has known throughout decades of his career. At 65, he is not just the television mogul or the direct, often ruthless judge who captivated millions of viewers on American Idol, The X Factor, and Got Talent, but also a man who has learned, through experience and challenges, to balance work, family, and personal well-being. Simon recognizes that the whirlwind pace of his youth and early adulthood was essential to building his career, but it also brought strain, emotional tension, and a high price for his personal life. He now values every moment of calm and prioritizes activities that bring true meaning, far beyond financial success or media visibility. Family has become the central core of his life. His relationship with Lauren Silverman, solidified over the years, is seen by him as a source of stability and emotional support. The arrival of his son Eric represented a profound transformation in his routine and perspective on life. Simon, who for decades was known for an impersonal stance focused on immediate results, has grown to appreciate the small details of family life, moments of presence, and experiences that cannot be bought or scheduled. He has admitted in recent interviews that fatherhood changed the way he views the world. It brought patience, understanding, and a desire to create lasting memories rather than simply collecting professional achievements. This focus on family has also influenced his career decisions, making him more selective about the projects he accepts, seeking work that does not compromise time with his son or the harmony of home life. Simon's maturity is evident not only in his personal life, but also in his professional approach. While he continues to be a prominent television presence and an influential figure in the entertainment industry, he has learned to exercise his authority more balanced, using his experience to guide new talent with empathy rather than merely imposing harsh judgments. He demonstrates an awareness that the impact of his words and actions extends beyond the moment of filming, influencing not only contestants but also teams, families, and fans around the world. This shift in approach reflects a subtle reinvention. He maintains the frank, direct personality that made him famous, but now combines it with reflection, sensitivity, and in many cases, even humor. Another important aspect of this phase of Simon's life is the emphasis on mental and physical balance. Throughout his career, he faced periods of intense stress, exhaustion, and emotional challenges that required strict discipline to protect his health and well-being. Today, he dedicates time to practices that promote balance, including regular physical activity, leisure moments, and trips that combine rest with cultural and family experiences. He understands that longevity in both career and personal life depends on self-care, not just immediate results or maintaining an unshakable public image. Simon has also reinvented how he handles fame. He realized he no longer needs to be present in every spotlight, engage in every controversy, or compete for public attention at all costs. This awareness has given him freedom. He can choose more meaningful projects, avoid unnecessary conflicts, and dedicate himself to initiatives that truly reflect his vision and values. At the same time, he maintains a strategic presence on television programs and entertainment events, ensuring that his influence continues to be felt without sacrificing his emotional health or family stability. Simon Cowell's reinvention is also reflected in his approach to the media and the public. He has learned to be selective with interviews, value authentic conversations, and protect his personal life from invasive curiosity. This maturity shows that, although he remains an entertainment icon, he no longer depends solely on others' attention to validate his choices or professional worth. He has found a balance between being a public figure and preserving private spaces, ensuring that his life is not defined solely by headlines, rumors, or superficial controversies.